You hear the music, you know it means that we are live. Orange and blue today, Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and to quote Dave Chappelle doing Rick James, it's a celebration because Andrew Mason, can you believe it? It has been 1 year to the day since the announcement of the Russell Wilson deal came through, and it seems like it's a celebration in your house as well.
My daughter's right here. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi.
You're a star, Charlotte.
Yes, making another appearance. So yeah, it's a celebration. It's a good time. But you know what? It's interesting to think back about what we were all thinking 12 months ago today, and what we are thinking right now as we look back at the first year of Russell Wilson, not the Russell Wilson era, and by Charlotte, but the first year, because
Right.
I put some of my tweets out there from a year ago today. I reposted them because I think it's really important for us all to look back on what we thought, because there's going to be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking here, but to a man, all of us were pumped about this.
Every single one of us.
Yes, and so nobody should lie about this. We were
Right.
all pumped.
Right. No revisionist history. And I like the piece that you wrote at denversports.com about Russell Wilson after 1 year, 10 dates that got the Broncos and Wilson to this point. And your first was the unbridled enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
And then June 1st, more than they could chew. So we got some clues, and depending on who you talk to, Mace, you could say that it was the walkthrough and the OTAs and the camp, it's like a resort out there. It's not training camp. The Tim Patrick saying this offense is really complex. So we had some clues, but still during the offseason, it wasn't until training camp and then week 1 when things in my head started to think of those negative scenarios.
Yeah.
But we looking back now with hindsight, we can say, okay, there were some rumblings that maybe we should have picked up on.
Yeah. I mean, I started with the unbridled enthusiasm. That's Nathaniel Hackett at the first press conference. And I touched on this the day that Hackett got fired, Boxing Day, after the Rams debacle, because I sort of retraced the things that told us sort of how it was going to go. And when you look back at that, Nathaniel Hackett sounding more like a fan and not a coach. That's the thing. What you have now, yeah, Sean Payton's been to dinner with Russell Wilson. I'm sure they'll go to dinner again. But what you have is a coach and a player.
Right.
You have a more functional relationship than Hackett being starstruck, quite frankly. And then 2.5 months later, they're vacationing together in London. I mean, I'm sorry. Coach and a player, generally speaking, they don't go on vacation together, right? It might be like Sean McVay bumps into Matthew Stafford and Cabo when they're hammering out a trade, but they don't actually do vacation stuff together, right? I mean,
right.
Maybe you go out for dinner or something like that, but not like going to concerts and hanging out and all that. And so that was kind of the first thing that told you this is not really the most functional thing. That was the first thing. And then the second thing, which I put down, it was right at the start of June. It was during OTAs. During OTAs, the Broncos have a lot of press conferences. That they open one practice a week, but the rest of the time we're just going down there and we're sitting in the bunker and under the field house, the bomb shelter, whatever we want to call it, where we got displaced to last year because they wanted a game room. Yeah, that really helped. And Tim Patrick gets up there and he talks about all the work the offense is having to do to learn to learn this new scheme. What it turned out to be a Frankenstein's monster of a scheme with concepts Hackett liked and concepts Wilson wanted to integrate into the offense. And so effectively, it was like they were learning a scheme that was double the size. And even back then in June, Patrick was talking about how complicated it was to learn.
Right. He said that at OTAs, and then I'll say we, even though I don't like when people say we lost him. We lost Tim Patrick, along the way. And you could easily say the story could be different with Tim Patrick.
Yes.
The story of the 2022 Broncos Nathaniel Hackett still might be head coach if Tim Patrick had played the full season. As crazy as that may sound, I've always said it when Peyton Hillis got hurt. He's reaching for like a screen pass or something and
Right.
tore his hamstring, and he was like their 9th running back that they got to that year. But if Hillis hadn't gotten hurt, Mike Shanahan might have continued coaching the Broncos because they wouldn't have missed the
Right.
playoffs. So, like, it's one of those butterfly effect things that you highlighted at your article at denversports.com.
Well, let's just look at a couple of early season games. Week 1 in Seattle, struggle in the red zone, right? Settling for field goals. I mean, I'm saying you're still getting those fumbles from Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. But if you get a touchdown there in the red zone in the fourth quarter, you probably win the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's fast forward a little under a month to that Thursday night debacle against the Colts. If Tim Patrick's out there, first of all, this was one of the moments, because why on earth you're trying a slant route to Tyree Cleveland to get a touchdown when you need 5 yards to end the game? Actually, as I wrote in the story today, a touchdown extends the game because you're up 2 scores, but then you give the Colts the ball back. If you get 5 yards and that's it, you kneel it out and you're done, you win 9-6. So why you were going for a touchdown there, my goodness, I don't have a clue. But the fact that you're throwing to Tyree Cleveland there, that's a Tim Patrick play if Patrick doesn't get hurt. And so it's still a bad decision, but it's a bad decision that might result in a touchdown. And then worst case scenario, you win 16-13. Get the Colts drive down and get a late touchdown for window dressing, and that's it. So I just gave you in the first 5 games 2 that would have been reversed, I think, if Tim Patrick had been out there. And if you're 4-1 rather than 2-3, I think the season takes on an entirely different arc. Maybe you still finish 8-9 or 9-8, but Nathaniel Hackett's still here right now.
Yeah. So along the way, September 1st, you highlight the new contract, Wilson signing that 5-year extension that could be up to worth to $245 million. And just thinking back at that contract, I had thought, again, having optimism on September 1st, optimism, I was like, I'm surprised it isn't fully guaranteed. Everything, every single penny. So
we kind of thought it was a little bit of a discount, right? That it wasn't the Deshaun Watson deal. It's like, wow, I mean,
George Payton, what a great deal.
$165 million guaranteed, and it seemed like you were getting something of a bargain. Now, I mean, not that it's a bargain, but the fact that it's not fully guaranteed is what does give you the window to get out of this if he can't put it together this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to hurt, no doubt. And we'll get into some of the ramifications of it the next couple of days, because I think that contract does factor in somewhat maybe to the Broncos' planning as they prepare to attack this offseason here. But if every dime was fully guaranteed, I mean, this team would really be up a creek.
Now, since we are looking back at the year anniversary of the Russell Wilson trade, I do have to ask you, Mace, because there's been controversy about this.
Yeah.
And I've heard different things, and there's things that I believe, but I believe you and I trust in you. The impetus to get the deal done. I have heard there was zero pressure from Wilson's camp.
Yeah,
I've heard this was all George Payton and getting that done. Then when things went awry, you heard some people, and there was an I don't want to give too much away, and we can talk about this off air if you'd like, but there was like an anti-Wilson push coming from some people around the building, and it was shocking to me because usually those people around the building are very friendly with the players that are on the roster. And there was like this his people push for it and his spirit, and I'm like, well, that's not what I first heard. And from where I heard it from, I generally believe that there was no push from Wilson's people to get it done because Mace, again, at the end of the day, they didn't get a fully guaranteed deal, which I honestly thought they would have gotten.
Well, what I had heard is that there wasn't a push. There was an unwritten, unspoken expectation, but not a push, right?
Right.
An expectation of a deal, but it wasn't like it was in writing. Okay, that this has to be done.
Yes, we're going to do the trade so that in August you guys will get the deal done.
Right, and it's interesting because I mean, what if you didn't get the deal done by then, was Russell Wilson going to walk out? No,
2 years
no.
left.
Yeah, he would have played, and then you see where it goes, and then you'd. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I just got derailed by the comment.
That's our pot stoner degenerate friend Jason
Oh
up there in Greeley. So yeah,
yes, yes.
hey, he's drinking Mountain Dew and eating some Darth Vader purple Koosh, whatever. So yeah,
So but doesn't the caffeine kind of counterbalance the effect of the pot?
I have no idea. We'll
I'm
have to ask him.
anyway. So
Yeah. Anyway, so yes,
because
there.
one's a stimulant, one's a depressant, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's
So
like Red Bull and vodka when people drink that. And by the way,
yeah,
Jason wants to know if you're drinking that hard iced tea,
it's soft. It's just regular, just caffeinated.
regular iced tea. But is it sweetened or unsweetened? You a sweetened tea
It
guy?
I'm a diet sweet tea guy, but yes, it is
Okay.
it is Lipton Southern sweet tea, which is a diet thing. So
Okay. There you go.
it's not bad. It's 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 a better, put it this way, if you're trying to stretch your food and drink dollar more, that's better than like soda and things like that. So
Right, right. That is for sure. All
water's
right.
the best of all, but
It
that's
is. It is.
that.
Well, this ain't water, baby. And it's not vodka either. It's Bang.
Well, you
Um,
you remember Maurice Claret, right?
oh, of course. Yeah, he had it on the in his water bottle at practice,
Yeah, like
allegedly or whatever.
the water bottle in the weight room, and he didn't want to let it
Uh,
out of his sight. I
yeah.
believe he once said, "I got to get my goose on."
Yeah. And that was,
Oh,
I remember the spin on that pick. And God bless Mike Shanahan. I love Mike Shanahan. But what was it? Brandon Jacobs, I think I wanted him to take there. And
yeah.
everyone kept spinning like it was a free pick because it was a
I
compensatory pick. I was like, it was still a bad pick.
I hate that notion. Okay, like the notion, oh, it's a comp pick, so we can just do whatever the heck we want with it. It doesn't matter. That's a terrible notion. That you're saying that the pick has no value, so you might. I mean, so why have a pick at all? Why use any salary cap space at all? As it turned out, they didn't, because Maurice Claret signed a contract that didn't have any guarantees in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
That's for
man,
sure.
that was messed up. That whole
That
thing was messed up.
that
But yet
was
the
messed up.
rationale behind that pick was farcical, especially when you consider that just 1 year later, because it was a comp pick at the end of the third round, 1 year later in round 4, they picked Dominic Hickson, Brandon Marshall, and Elvis Dumervil. Hickson only was in Denver a year and a half, but he had like a 12-year career.
Yeah.
And I believe he won a couple of Super Bowls because he went on to the
With the
Giants.
Giants. Yeah.
Yeah. And Dumervil became an all pro with the Broncos. Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver, had a terrific career.
Right.
So a year later, you basically showed why you should actually treat those picks as something of value.
Yes.
So, but
And why you need to go for it and make those type of picks like they did with Hickson and Marshall and Doomerville. And I'll bring up something. This is way off track, but now my head's here. And I love picking your brain about this stuff because you will remember this. The Dallas Cowboys, after taking Troy Aikman, because I've always said Chicago, you need to think about Bryce Young.
yes,
I know Justin Fields. Oh my God, he's the greatest ever. And if you don't say that, I'm like, I was the one fighting against the stupid Dan Orlovsky stuff when he was spreading rumors about Justin Fields using his epilepsy to get out of practice, and I know that Orlovsky apologized like a day later,
mm-hmm.
but dude, you can't be a moron and say that about that quarterback when all you have to do is talk to any former Ohio State player and be like, the dude's a warrior, he's out there, he's grinding, whatever. So I defend Justin Fields, but I also know Bryce Young is an incredible passer. But
Right.
and people, they can't do that. They have the yeah, they can. Do you know what the Dallas Cowboys did? And you'll remember this, Mace. They took Troy Aikman, number 1 overall. Then they used their compensatory pick, which happened to be the number 1 pick the next year on Steve Walsh. And there was a
Right.
time when Walsh and Aikman were going back and forth. It was a little bit like Roger Staubach, Craig Morton in the day. The Broncos had a much lesser version with Tommy Maddox and Sean Moore. But like
Mm-hmm.
that, yes. Play a little bit fast and loose, but take those chances. And they had Aikman for a year. Then
Yeah,
they grabbed Steve Walsh.
and here's the thing, like a year. So first of all, in that first season, the only game the Cowboys won was with Steve Walsh at quarterback. They were playing in Washington.
Right.
13-3. I mean, that was probably the worst loss of Joe Gibbs' career, I would say. was to Dallas when they went 1-15 at home. Doesn't get much more embarrassing than that. If I'm not mistaken, after that though, they went like 6-1 the rest of the way, and I believe the only loss they had that season after that was to Denver in the chip beef on toast Gary Kubiak for John Elway game, one of Gary Kubiak's great moments. But I digress.
Right.
So the following off season, it becomes clear Troy Aikman's going to be the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, they obviously they gave up a lot to get Steve Walsh, right? Because they gave up what proved to be the number one overall pick, turned out to be Jeff George. When they end up trading Steve Walsh to the Saints because Bobby Hebert held out, and Vic Fangio touched on this a few years ago. They went into the season with John Fourcade as a starting quarterback, with Hebert holding out. Fourcade had played well at the end of the year, the prior year, and then struggled as a starter in 1990. And that was what led Vic Fangio to refer to the false positive. The risk of the false positive with Drew Lock at the end of 2019, he was hearkening back to John Fourcade. So
he'd seen it
anyway,
before.
He'd seen it. He knew what it looked like. Vic gets a lot of flack around here, but he's a very smart guy. So anyhow, they trade for Steve Walsh. They end up giving up a draft package that includes a 1, a 2, and a 3. First round pick, second round pick, third round pick. Just because they picked a quarterback to go on top of the quarterback they had. Look, I said this in 2018. Remember when the Browns had 2 top 5 picks?
Yes.
Okay. I said they have picks 1 and 4. Why not pick 2 quarterbacks?
Right.
Not that Denzel Ward hasn't been fine as number 4 overall pick. He has been. But how much better would the Browns have looked if they had picked Josh Allen number 4?
Right.
The Browns would have, Allen would never have been a Bill. You would
They'd never had that fully guaranteed deal for Deshaun Watson.
The interesting thing about that, though, is after year 1, they probably would have traded Josh Allen because Baker Mayfield actually looked pretty good as a rookie.
Right.
And so that
But what could you have gotten for Josh Allen? Everyone talks about the Herschel Walker deal building the Cowboys in the 90s. Well, the Steve Walsh deal was in there too.
Well, maybe the Denver Broncos make a deal because they were quarterback shopping in 2019, right?
Yeah.
Maybe in that alternate reality where the Browns go QB to start 2018, then Josh Allen becomes a Bronco. Because
it would be nice.
Instead of trading for Joe Flacco.
Yeah. That's interesting to be sure. A walk down memory lane today. It's a year anniversary of the Russell Wilson trade. Alessandro is suffering. Don't suffer, Alessandro. You're here with us, man. We're having a good time. We were talking about Detroit's in the house with Detroit Mission Control. But your latest at denversports.com. 2 bad decisions on October 6th. I think this was another key moment in your 10 moments over the last year with the Russell Wilson season 1.
Yeah, the first one, of course, touched on it earlier. If you've got 3rd and 4 and you're up 9-6 and the Colts are out of timeouts, I believe there was 2:19 left, right? You don't need to be going for a touchdown, okay? Get the first down, kneel it out, end it, right? You didn't need to be throwing a slant route to Tyree Cleveland against Stephon Gilmore, okay? You didn't need to do that. But that was the call. Russell Wilson made, that was the call. It was a bad call from Hackett, but then, Wilson should have just done something else, right? Just gone through his reads or taken off and run instead of trying to jam it in there against Stephon Gilmore. And then in overtime, next time the Broncos see the ball, they're behind because that defense was tired. The Colts finally got some momentum. They had 2 field goals. They took the lead. And you get to 4th down and 1, right? Not 4th and goal, 4th and 1, okay? You don't have to get a touchdown. You don't have to try to jam it in there, again, against Stephon Gilmore when KJ Hamler's open. Just that, honestly, Cecil, when I look back on the season, those 2 moments in near juxtaposition in terms of Broncos offensive possessions, that's where I look back, and that's where I started thinking this could be a really rough year. Like that something may be really wrong with Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah. And
He didn't
so
see he didn't see KJ Hamler there in the end
right.
zone.
And
That's why
and
KJ was so upset.
the design, rightfully so, the design of the damn offense and this Frankenstein amalgamation that we ended up getting was just so wrong because,
Mhm.
people will say, and Russ, and I'm like, look at his feet. His hitch wasn't even to be there. Yet, when facing that defense at that point in the field, that route is open. All
Mhm.
you have to do is look off and then go boom right there. So your hitch should have been showing middle of the field and then hitch, boom, throw.
Right.
His feet didn't even move. So when people say he didn't see him, I'm like, that's correct. But the design of that play should have been knowing that receiver was going to be open automatically, whether that's on Russ or the play call or whatever. I think it just showed how corrupt everything was.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And there was no recovering from that. I mean, we could point to other things. I mean, I didn't put the high knee kicks in there because you know what? That's meaningless. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't care about that. I largely left the social media stuff out of that because this piece because you know what? I don't think it mattered all that much. There was more than enough football stuff to talk about,
Yeah.
and without getting into all the stuff that I thought got weirdly personal as
Yeah.
as the season as the season progressed. But then the next moment beyond the Colts game, we fast forward to Thanksgiving weekend in Charlotte, and Mike Purcell shouting at Russell Wilson on the sideline.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when tempers, and I give Avro so much credit. We've talked about it on the show. Like, there
Mhm.
wasn't that split. Wade
Yeah.
split the room. I know Wade denied it, but like, yeah, we were there. Like, that room was pretty split. And, it's
Mhm.
like, hey, those guys suck. We're still pretty good on defense.
Yeah.
Everett's defense never split, but we did see cracks. And we saw that crack with the Purcell tempers boiling over. And it wasn't the
Mhm.
only time that we'd see tempers flare on the sidelines.
Right. I mean, it got bigger as the season went on, but that was the moment where we that was I think the first moment where we saw something visible in terms of a fissure in the team. Until that point, it had been pretty much together. But that game also, it's funny because Mike Purcell got really upset, but that was also a game where I felt like even though the defense had some moments the rest of the way, that was where the defense really just started to snap, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Carolina just ran the ball down Denver's throat time and again that day, and it didn't end. And by and large, from that point forward, kind of the last belch of really solid play from the defense was the following week in Baltimore. But remember, that was not against Lamar Jackson because Lamar got
Right.
hurt early in that game, and much easier to stop a Tyra Huntley led offense than a Lamar Jackson led offense. That's what kept the Broncos in that game. But by and large, the Carolina game was the start of things really kind of going downhill for the defense, and then it peaked in the Rams game where the defense had a bad day. I would say the defense that's where they just kind of really gave up. But what caused them to give up? Back-to-back picks by Russell Wilson in the first quarter,
Right.
right? What started the snowball down the hill that became the avalanche was Russell Wilson having two interceptions before completing a pass
They
and
were
then
down
getting roasted.
17-0 before Wilson completed a pass.
Yeah, just remarkably
A defense
bad.
can only take so much.
Yeah, two of the drives started inside the Denver 35 off of the interceptions. So they were short fields. And Steve saying, "Thank you so much for making us relive last year." Slow poor news day. It is
Sorry,
kind of a
Steve.
slow it's slow news day, yes, but I
The
think
calm before the storm. Next week's going to
it
be a
is.
storm, baby.
Yeah, we're going to get to the legal tampering period on Monday and then the new league year starting formally on Wednesday. This is it. This is the kind of the clean out of this past year.
Right.
And that's why, like Sean Payton say in Indianapolis, he's going to set up a car that has no rear view mirrors, no rear view mirror, no side view mirrors to kind of symbolize, hey, we're not looking back, we're looking ahead. But right now, you're still sifting through the damage because That damage is part of what creates the landscape that the Broncos are dealing with right now, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of there's a lot of bits and pieces strewn all over the place that have to be cleaned up and cleaned up in a hurry. But yeah, that game in Los Angeles, it was on everybody, and that everybody included Russell Wilson, and it's why he ended up getting roasted by a dim-witted starfish on national television. I mean,
Right. Right.
so
And I'll.
that's not what he wanted to cook. I mean,
Uh,
has there have been worse moments for the Broncos, no doubt, but has there been a more comically embarrassing moment for the Broncos than Christmas Day, Patrick Starr making fun of your, $165 million quarterback
right.
at the end of a bad season?
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous.
It was the
But
thing out of
yeah,
an alternate reality. Like, is
yeah.
this real? Like, you're getting made fun of by a cartoon character.
But let's end this on a hopeful note,
Yes.
because the next day they fire Hackett and Jerry Rosberg comes in, and Rosberg makes Justin Alton the play caller. And what do we see over the next 2 weeks? We see Russell Wilson looking like Russell Wilson against two playoff bound teams playing their starters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
He that was what we were expecting all along. They beat Kansas City if you don't have that terrible OPI call against Cortland Sutton.
Right.
I am convinced, I will go to my grave saying, if not for that call, the Broncos win that game in Kansas City on New Year's Day. And boy, oh boy, what kind of conversation are we having about that coaching situation if the Broncos win those two games? I mean, would it still be Sean Payton? Perhaps.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
There'd been more of a push for Jerry Rosberg.
oh my
But
gosh,
you
it would
saw the good football, you saw the good
right.
decisions, and you saw the discipline. I've said it time and time again. The Mike Purcell thing kind of ties into this. Mace, these guys want to be coached. They want to be taught. They want someone. If you can tell them the why, you can't just go out there and yell at them, Butchberry. You have to tell them the why, coach them, teach them. They want to learn. They're like sponges. Even the best in the game are like sponges. Even a Jerry Rice, a Tom Brady, a Terrell Davis, like these guys wanted to constantly learn, grow, evolve, and develop. And you saw just with the simple move of having Jerry Rosberg in, and then of course Justin Alton doing his thing, like you saw them come to life. You know there's good football there. And as we saw it when you were at the Combine, it's not like the talent on this team is like overflowing at all.
No, it's
but
not.
they played two really good games and they look good.
To me, with all respect to Sean Payton, all the hope for this year comes from those last two games and what we saw with Russell Wilson. And then Payton getting up there at his press conference and pointing to what Russell Wilson did at the end of the year and having that be the emphasis going forward, that it's going to look more like that. Hallelujah. Yes. I don't care about Russell Wilson playing to the age of 43, nor should Russell Wilson. This is about getting him right now. Because if you can't get him right now, you're gonna move on in a year. You're gonna eat. You're gonna eat what's left on the contract before another $37 million comes in. You're gonna go in a different direction. But the clearest path out of this mess is getting Russell Wilson right and getting him doing what he does best. Even though that means you may expose him to injury, which means you got to have your backup quarterback at a high level, which I know that DMAC doesn't agree with me on that, but whatever. But that's all that's in play. And then finally, the end point, the 10th date, was the date of Sean Payton's first press conference, because that's when he says Team Russ is out of the building. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we'll see you. And I'll save my rant about DMAC going from like, just go get Marcus Mariota to like, just suck. If Wilson goes down, just suck and get a draft pick. Like, okay.
Well, he's come back around. Like, he's come all the way back.
Is he back to Mariota? Is he back to Mariota?
No. Like no, he's come back to where he was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, when he was saying things like wreck it with Rosberg, and totally tank this year, for either Drake May or Caleb Williams. Look, I'll say this right now: if the Broncos can't get where they want to go with Russell Wilson, if Sean Payton can't get there, and they are looking for a quarterback next year, I believe they will move heaven and earth to get as high in the draft as they can to get one of those 2 quarterbacks at the top of next year's draft.
And nobody is
I'll call
untouchable.
a shot. No, nobody's
Nobody's
untouchable.
Pat Surtain. You trade Pat Surtain. Like if that's truly what they're going to do and they want a Caleb Williams, they will.
Yeah.
The farm.
Right.
Sell the farm.
Well, the beauty of next year is there's 2 quarterbacks that are looking at being legit 1-2 in Caleb Williams and Drake May. There are Drake May, I think, would have gone number 1 this year, and Caleb Williams would have definitely gone number 1 this year. Let's just
and this is a really strong class. This isn't last year's class,
right? But I think it's stronger at the top next year in terms of the top 2.
Yes,
I don't know that it has the same depth as this year, but I think the 2 at the top are stronger than they are this year. So that and I think, knowing how Sean Payton, he will sacrifice draft capital to move up. We've seen it time and again. So I believe that even if you're sitting there and Russell Wilson doesn't work out and you finish 7-10, I believe they will find a way to get up where they need to go to get one of those 2 quarterbacks at the top of next year's draft. I think he prefer Caleb Williams based on what he said about Caleb Williams, but it doesn't mean we haven't heard. He doesn't mean he wouldn't like Drake May either. He's just, I think he was only asked about Caleb Williams. But when you have 2 quarterbacks that are a potential 1-2, I think Sean Payton will be fine with either of them if it comes down to that. But we'll see. The Payton Russ relationship, we got a year to figure this out. That's what this year is all about, everybody. It's about Russ and Payton. And that is where DMAC is right. This year is about that. But I don't believe Sean Payton is going to say, I don't care about the backup quarterback because I got Russell Wilson. No.
Right.
He's going to try to win as many games as possible. Sean Payton does not want to tank and have a 2-15 season on his resume, okay? And that's why I say also the floor for this team is 7 wins. Sean Payton, historically, his floor is 7 wins. And I think the Broncos somehow, some way, even if Russell Wilson struggles, even if you've got a backup quarterback like a Jameis Winston or whoever having to come in, they're going to get 7 wins this year. I would put that in concrete.
All right, we're running a little bit long today, but that's fine. We had a little bonus content for y'all, and we'll talk about the other league stuff tomorrow. But we had to take a moment out today and reflect on the last year. Honestly, Mace, and maybe it's just being so overwhelmed by how much this team sucked. I feel better about the prospects of the Broncos going forward now than I did a year ago when I was over the moon. I may be tempering my enthusiasm because, I don't want to look like a clown again and be like, they're back. But it feels real this time.
It does. And you know what? I feel enthusiastic because I feel like there are 2 there are 2 paths here, right? We're going to go down one, and if it doesn't work out, there's an off ramp. That's why that's a reason why back in January I said I would not trade 2 first-round picks for Sean Payton. I was okay with 1, but not 2. And the Broncos managed to pull that off. They did not have to trade next year's first-round pick for Sean Payton. And that's key because they might very well need it for the off-ramp if he can't get Russ right.
He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey. We are orange and blue today, and we appreciate you for watching each and every day, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned, and as always, I ask, stay frosty.